Hey friend, welcome to the Halfway to Dead podcast. I'm your host, Jen Lovell. Listen, you and I have reached that age where we are done with the bullshit. We know that midlife is our chance to flip the script and experience life on our own terms. It's time to reconnect with our higher selves and reclaim our inner peace. Are you ready with an open heart and an open mind? Awesome, you're in the right place. Hop in and ride shotgun with me on this midlife spiritual journey. Hey, everybody. Welcome. So today I interviewed Jennifer Spor. Jennifer is the CEO and founder of her namesake company, co-author of 2 best-selling books, and host of Path of the Awakened Heart podcast. She is also a spiritual mentor, a channel, and multidimensional healer for spiritual visionaries. So today we start off by just going over her journey story, and we talk a little bit about her dark night of the soul, when shit hit the fan, as happens with a lot of us, and she started to really level up her spiritual awakening. Then we dig in and we start talking about what it's like when we're trying to develop our intuition, how to trust our instincts, how to tell if it's our intuitive voice versus our ego that we're hearing. And then it brings us into knowing what truth feels like in our body, not on the internet, but what it feels like in our bodies. And that brings us into religion and how our religious upbringing may affect some of these things. And we talk about fate versus destiny. We just get into all kinds of stuff. So let's jump in. Let's not even delay. Let's just jump in and hear everything that Jen had to share with us. Hey, Jennifer, thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Jen. And I love your name, of course. I'm super excited to be here.
There's something about that name, right?
Right. Exactly.
We all love that name. Okay, so I've kind of told everybody the things you're doing with your podcast and your books and that. But where I wanted to start is just with your story. I like to get people's spiritual awakening journey stories because I think it's easier for us to connect with everybody that way. I know you've had like a big kind of aha moment, like that dark night of the soul that really brought you into this, but just a little bit of your story of how you got to that place.
Yeah, I love this question because I feel like there are several iterations, or we can refer to them as spiritual awakenings or catalysts, right? For shifts in consciousness that we experience. I'll share what was probably the first big one that I experienced, which really was many years ago. So I've been in my own business and doing the work that I'm doing today for actually 9 years this year, which is crazy that time has passed already. But before that, I had a career in retail, and I worked in retail for 23, 24 years, somewhere around there, really long time. And toward the end of my career, I was really well established. I was actually in an executive director position where I oversaw store operations for a large company. And for a long time, I was fulfilled in the work that I was doing. And I also feel like it's important to mention that even before this first kind of initial spiritual awakening I had, I've always been someone who has had to believe in whatever it is that I choose to pursue, right?
Yeah.
So I loved my job for a really long time. And I thought I would retire there, right? Especially someone who is a Gen X, which I am, we're conditioned to follow that chronological path of life. So I really started just feeling unfulfilled in my work. I wasn't having as much fun with it as I used to. I didn't feel like I was making as much of a difference. And that's really when I like to say the fog started to lift, because it was just like, wow, I never thought I would be in this place. And now I'm in this place. So what's next? Even though I wasn't fulfilled where I was at anymore from a career standpoint, I didn't leave right away. But what I did start doing right away was delving into my spiritual and personal development. I've always been energetically sensitive, hugely empathic, and that served me well in my corporate career.
Yeah.
But I started creating space outside of my work to get into meditation and really get back into who I was, essentially, because I realized around that same time, I didn't really know who I was.
So how old were you at this point when you're starting to do this, make this career change?
I was in my mid 30s.
Okay. Okay. So if we back it up, were you religious or spiritual growing up through, say, from childhood into your 20s?
So I've always been spiritual. I've never been religious per se. That being said, I did grow up in a Christian environment,
Okay.
specifically influenced by my mother's parents. So I used to go to Sunday school and
Yeah.
live that kind of thing, right?
So you were the traditional Christian upbringing, but you felt very spiritual the whole time too.
Yeah. Because I say that because some of the man-made constructs that exist around Christianity and other religions actually have some fear-based foundations.
For sure.
Yeah. So that I never believed in. Like that was the part of religion from what I was taught, what it meant to be religious, right? That I didn't agree with or believe in.
Right. Yep. The fear, like if you do this, you burn in hell. If you do that, you burn in hell. Yeah. There's a long list of fearful.
Exactly. Or yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Or you can only be this person or have this sexual preference or
Exactly.
that, right? I never believed in any of that. So anyways, so I digress. So I was about 36. So I started embarking on this journey of rediscovering, really essentially figuring out who I was, because the position I was in at the time, I was on all the time in my work, and aside of that, I was really allowing most of my extracurricular activities were influenced by what my other friends wanted to do.
Okay.
So I realized like, okay, well, I know I'm a good person and all of that, but I really, don't know who I am. So I started embarking on that journey. And then it was about a year and a half, 2 years later, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. And at the time, I was living on the East Coast and she was living in Idaho, where I live now, which is near where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
So I was flying back and forth trying to manage being present to my career and with my family and her. And there was this one day that I just remember, just like yesterday. A few days before she transitioned, I was sitting at her bedside being present with her, and my phone started blowing up. It was some issue that in retrospect could have been prevented,
Right.
It was like the universe was giving me my 1 millionth opportunity to choose, right?
Yep.
And I was very present to that in that particular moment. And I looked at my phone and I looked at my mom. And that was it. That was the moment I said, I'm done. I'm never going to live my life again feeling like I'm stuck and feeling like I have to choose.
Right.
I decided that I was done. My courage exceeded my fear in that moment. And it didn't mean that I became fearless, right? I don't believe in being fearless. Fearless to me is defined more as acknowledging the fear and making a conscious decision to move through it.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, that's where I was.
So you took a retail company and you were, like you said, you were in a high position. You were making good money. It's comfortable for you, but you said, nope, I'm done.
Yeah, because I already knew that I wasn't feeling fulfilled anymore, right? I just didn't know what was next. And I didn't know what was next in that moment. And back then, I was closer to 39 at this point, a couple of years had gone by. So back then, remote work culture wasn't a thing.
No.
So I ended up having to choose between keeping my position and living out there, which I had to do at that point, or moving back out to Idaho. Because at the time, after my mom passed, I wanted to be physically closer to my remaining family, which is pretty much my sister and at the time, one set of grandparents. So I moved out here. I like to say, much like the lyrics of a country song, because it's funny. I rented my house in New Jersey, packed up my car and drove across the country, decided I, wanted to move. It was time to go. And after I got out here, I stayed on with my previous company doing some consulting work for them for a little while. basically on projects where I had been a stakeholder before in my other position. And it was during this time I was having this tremendous spiritual awakening, didn't have any clue what was going to unfold on my path. I just knew that I needed to move at the time.
So when you're saying like you felt this spiritual awakening, what was happening? Were you meditating? Were you starting to get signs, like number signs? Like what all was happening? How did you know you were entering in this?
So I've been meditating for about 15 years, 7 days a week for 15 years.
Okay. Yeah. You got a practice going. Yeah.
And I still teach my clients this today. And I talk about it a lot, that the number one thing to really get grounded into having a clear sense of yourself and who you are is to create that space to be still. And I do guided journeys every so often, but I do this for myself, and I recommend this to my clients as well, is learning how to meditate in silence, learning how to be still with your body, to really be present to everything that's happening with your senses and your body. And that is a major opening to deepening into your connection with God, with your soul's voice, with your guides, with your spiritual gifts, with anything else, right?
You're saying we have to get to the point where they're not just guided meditations. We need to get to the point where it can just be silent.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is hard sometimes. Yeah.
It requires discipline. It's like working a muscle, like anything else. And meditation was really that gateway for me to really open up to anchoring into that shift in consciousness. And so I didn't know I was going to do the work I'm doing today when I moved, right? I was doing this consulting work, basically just trying to live today, following where I'm being guided. And at the time, I had invested in therapists, coaches, healers, psychics, a lot of people, right, to support me on the journey I was going through.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find at the time was someone who could relate to what I was experiencing and also support me in integrating who I was becoming into my physical reality. That was my realization, more of like an epiphany, a divine download, whatever you want to call it. It was like, oh, I need to do this. I also had this innate knowing that there was something more that I was being called to.
Yeah.
And so that was when I decided to start my business. I started out coaching in late 2016.
Okay. So the first service you offered was spiritual coaching, business coaching. What kind of coaching?
Yeah. So back then when I first started my business, right, I referred to it more as leadership well-being. So I started out working with other women who were in corporate, who needed to embark on a similar journey of rediscovering who they were and finding more harmony and balance in their life and finding their purpose, essentially. That's who I started working with. The intuitive work came in shortly after that. And then as I continued to ascend on my own journey and deepen in and open up to more of my own spiritual gifts and healing technologies, I started sharing more and more of that with my clients. And I started podcasting actually back in 2019.
Okay. So you guys, she's a channel, spiritual mentor channel, reads the Akashic Records, which you call yourself an Akashic Record master consultant. I love that. And a multidimensional healer. So when did all of these other skills start being downloaded and coming on board? Was it the learning to tap into the Akashic Records first? Did you just learn Reiki? Like what started you in that path?
I've been energetically sensitive my whole life. Okay. And then meditation about 15 years ago really like cracked me open, right? Yeah. Basically, that and the journey that I went on with my mom, with her having cancer, really cracked me open too. Then I started out as a life coach, but a spiritually based life coach. I actually had found this program that was really aligned for me, that was spiritually based, very specific, like around universal laws and law of attraction. So I started there. Then I felt guided to train in light body. So I did that. Then I got into Reiki and did that.
Okay, wait, rewind because people won't know what you just said. You were training in light body. Tell us what that is.
Light body is essentially becoming a light body practitioner. It's essentially awakening the energy centers in your body. So it's beyond chakras. Okay. It's beyond the 7 basic chakras that most people know about. So literally when I started training in that, I visually started seeing like so much more opened up. And then I felt guided to Reiki and trained in that for a while. And the Akashic Records came a few years ago after that. So it's like the deeper we go, essentially, there are more and more portals that open up for us in terms of our development. And now I work in frequencies that exist even beyond the Akashic Records.
Yeah, because you're saying multi-dimensional healer. So you're not just doing Reiki, you're actually tapping into other dimensions.
Yes.
What are you channeling exactly when you're healing people multi-dimensionally?
So I used to do private Akashic Records readings. I no longer offer private Akashic Records readings, still teach the Akashic Records because they're super expansive and tremendous for those people who are being called to them. So I still teach the records on occasion, but when I work with clients privately, I work directly with the client's highest self.
Okay.
And God.
Oh God. Okay. So you're going straight to the top. Yep.
Exactly.
Some people are channeling angels. Some people are channeling, I just interviewed someone who channels like the Pleiadians.
Totally. And those are all still beings that I communicate with, right? I have an extensive knowledge of communication with galactic extraterrestrial beings and all of that, right? And ascended masters too. I have extensive experience with that. And sometimes when I'm working with a client, a being will come in. For example, I was just having a conversation with someone else yesterday about Mother Mary. She's someone who frequently will make an appearance with a client, right? And so sometimes there will be beings that will come forward to aid in the space that I'm working in with the client in their healing or whatever it is that comes forward for them, because everyone's path is unique. But my intention is always to connect with the highest frequencies of Christ consciousness and then whatever comes forward.
Okay. So basically when you drop in with someone, you're getting permission from them, I'm assuming, to connect with their energy.
Opening up a space. Yep.
Yeah. So you connect in and then what's happening for you? You're calling in, like you said, you kind of just go straight up to the creator, to source, to God. And then you just kind of, hey, anybody who wants to come in can come in? Or are you just open enough that whatever feels like is the highest good for that person will come through?
That's the intention that I set, is that whatever is for the highest good of the client and the highest good of all will come through during the session. And sessions are a combination of, sometimes it can be mentoring, spiritual mentoring, and a portion of it is channeled messages, channeled guidance, and also the healing part. Specifically, a gift that I have, and I tend to naturally attract a lot of people who know that they're feeling called to something more, like there's a greater vision that they're feeling called to bring into the world. When I'm in session with someone, I can tap in directly to that energy and I'm shown what that path is for them and also what's holding them back. And that's where the healing piece comes in. So I'm providing essentially all encompassing support. So I'm not just giving someone information, I'm also providing them with the healing support that they need to make the shifts. And then I'm also, in some cases, providing them with practical action steps, right, that they can take to integrate all of that into their physical reality.
You're still sometimes probably tapping into their Akashic Records if that's what you're pulled to do at that time, to find blocks, to help people heal if you need to, or you're just getting that information from their higher self.
Yeah, it's just as expansive as the Akashic records are, which they are, absolutely. They're still a subset of creation. It's like more.
Probably so much more. We can't even wrap our brains around.
It's limitless. We have multiple universes. It's endless. It's limitless. It's endless.
And do you think that here, this 3D world Earth is like one of the hardest places to be in your experience with the dimensions?
Well, it certainly can be challenging. I mean, one of the reasons why it can be challenging here is because it's so dense.
Yeah, it's heavy.
There are like a lot of other planets who are more advanced from a technology standpoint. And when I say technology, I'm not talking about stuff like the internet. I'm talking about healing technologies, like way beyond. I know way beyond what I use, because I use some advanced healing technologies with clients, frequency healing, but it's dense.
Yeah.
On the plane. So that can, especially beings who have incarnated, in as other beings, right? Been more advanced and who have operated at a higher frequency, can find it challenging. Also, part of the deal coming here too is this amnesia that we come here with essentially. And that's intentional so that we can experience in real time finding our way back. Because it's not that we're broken or that like there's a problem really, or that something's missing. It's more just us having this experience in this human body to remember who we already are, the truth of who we already are. Like I've said in the past, that one of the greatest miracles and blessings, right, is that we get to be here in this human body and we have the free will to choose to come back to love. We can keep choosing over and over and over again, right? So I think it's just freaking amazing to be in this human body having this experience where, yeah, it can feel really challenging, but we get to choose over and over again. Yeah. It's a miracle to me.
So have you been getting any downloads through or anything through about 2025 and all these changes we're feeling right now, that change from 3D to 5D that everyone's talking about?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people talk about that to the point that it's now kind of like even a buzz term.
No, it's become like all the buzz. Yeah.
Yeah. The energies are actually, I will say, the energies are really aligned with the lunar cycles. And like we just had the Lunar New Year yesterday, moving in from the year of the dragon into the year of the snake. The energies are very much at an individual and collective level, that of the snake, right? Which represents shedding old skin, transformation. And the snake is also about paradox. So duality and integration, right? And that's the whole journey here. It's the paradox. It's mastering the paradox of living as an awakened soul in a human body, embodying your divinity. I mean, that's the whole journey. Jesus and Mary Magdalene are really good, grounded examples of that.
Yes. I love me some Mary Magdalene. I've been reading a book and I'm like obsessed with her right now. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a really good example of,
she got a bad rap.
And she's someone that I've worked with extensively as well on my own journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. Has she told you where the rest of her writings are? We need to find the rest of those pages. Not yet. Okay. All right. So you're reading the Akashic records with your clients. You're using different modalities for healing. So really a session with you just encompasses whatever we're needing at the time, right? You're going to...
Yeah. The one commonality I will say is that I tend to attract people who are being called to create something in the world that doesn't have a playbook. So
yeah,
there's an element of moving forward in unwavering faith. And it's not even really that our faith doesn't waver on a journey like that. It's like I said earlier about being fearless, that we're making a conscious decision to continue to move forward.
Yes.
One of my favorite quotes that I bring up often is from Joan of Arc, and that is, I am not afraid. I was born to do this.
Yeah.
And you feel that energy, right? That like, no matter what, I'm on the path. And that's just the thing, is There is no other path, just the path.
Just our path. So, okay, so tell me this. A lot of my listeners were on spiritual journeys here in midlife, figuring things out. So how do we know? We're learning to trust our intuition big time. That's part of it. And so how would you suggest, how do we start to differentiate between what's our soul and our highest self speaking to us versus just our ego? Because sometimes if we listen to the ego too much, we're on the wrong path because we need to make more money. We need to do this and that. What tips do you have for us to know what the right path is?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing and the easiest way to tell the difference between your intuitive voice and the ego is to know that the ego is fear-based. The ego is the one that will question and challenge. Your intuitive voice is always going to be neutral in nature, and it's always going to guide you toward growth and expansion. Now, sometimes growth, because of us being conditioned to fear the unknown, can instill fear in us, right? But that doesn't mean that because it's instilling fear in us, it's a bad thing. So that's the easiest way to tell the difference. Now, a lot of people poo-poo the ego or whatever, but
yeah, we need it.
It serves a purpose. Yeah, exactly. We need it. The mistake that we make in our human selves, right, sometimes is that we tend to treat the ego mind or just our human mind as the star of the show when it really belongs in a supporting role, right?
Okay.
Because our human mind, so Jen's human mind, right? Your human mind is all centered around making decisions based upon this current life experiences and Jen's human conditioning. And that's it, which is very limiting.
Yes. Like we're in survival mode. We depend on our ego.
Exactly. And that's how a lot of people live, is from that space.
Yeah. Fight or flight. We're just getting through day to day.
Right. So how can you grow from that space?
Okay. So we have to tap in higher.
Yes.
We've got to start listening to our higher self and our gut and our intuition.
Yes.
And so you're saying we know the difference because if we're thinking about something and we're fearful and it doesn't, like, it's making us nervous, we don't feel good about it.
That's your ego. Yeah.
That's the ego. But if we think of something and we go, oh, I get a little butterfly in my stomach. Like this feels like this is good. Or you feel new.
Yeah.
Or just like, well, I don't know. It might work. It might not. That might be more your intuition telling you. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So, and everyone's intuition is different. Okay. It's not a cookie cutter one and done, right? So one person might get the chills, another person might just know something without being able to explain how to know it.
So this goes back to figuring out our clairs.
Right. Yeah.
What are your main clairs? Like, do you just know things? Do you see things with your third eye? What do you feel like your clairs are?
So most people typically have 1 to 2 that are their strongest.
Yeah.
I use multiple clairs at this point.
But which ones came on board first for you?
Yeah. So clairsentience was always the number one ever my whole life.
Okay. You could just feel it.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I can feel and not even just feel, I can sense.
Okay.
Because there's physical feeling and then there's sensing, which is also clairsentience. So someone, I'm not the kind of person that I ask you how you're doing and you say, oh, I'm fine. And maybe you're not. And like, I already know how you're doing before I ask you how you're doing.
Yeah. So you can read a room really well. You can feel people's vibrations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I can do that really well too. Yeah. Like you can tell me you're fine, but I'll already know you're not. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I would say my second one is, and it's a close second to the clairsentience, is my claircognizance. And that's what I use a lot actually when I'm channeling, because I'll essentially just kind of open up, set the intention to open up and information will just start coming.
So how do you know if it's Mary Magdalene that has come in, if it's Christ that's come in, if it's like Metatron? I don't know, all the different things. Do you have a vision? Is there a color? Like, how do you know who's communicating with you?
Because I will feel them, see them, or they'll tell me.
And you tell it. Okay. So you've got all your clairs on board.
Yeah.
Because you just know, and probably you've worked with them long enough, you know.
I've been doing this work for a while too. Yes.
Yes. So for those of us who are all newbies and we're starting to meditate and feel connections with something, we don't know what it is. We're like, I don't know. I keep getting this feeling. I'm seeing this color or whatever. What's the best way to figure out who it is?
Yeah. I mean, ask. Just ask.
You can just ask. Okay. Just be like, okay, who are you? I know who you are.
You can just ask. That's the thing. Our human self, right, wants to approach everything as being complicated, and it's not. You know, one
Yeah.
of the greatest challenges in your intuitive development is trusting what comes forward, right?
Yep.
And acting on it,
Yeah.
right? So all you have to do is ask.
Do you find that things come through easier based on how you were raised? Like, okay, I was raised more Christian, or let's just say someone who was raised more Christian. Do you feel like they're most comfortable, like seeing Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, Jesus? Like, is that
Not necessarily.
really? See, that's what I think too, because I would have thought that from my upbringing. But I've had people come in that I'm like, I don't even know who they are. I have to like Google things and figure out. I'm like, wait, I've never even heard of Metatron. I've never even heard of Archangel, you know what I mean? Raguel. These are some that have come through for me, and I had never heard of them before they came through.
Well, Metatron, so Enoch.
Yes. See, I don't know all the connections yet. I have heard that because
Enoch's in the Bible. I mean, there's
Enoch's in the Bible. And that's something I find totally interesting too. All the different religious texts all kind of have the same stories.
They all do. Yeah, they all have for commonality. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. We are all more alike than different when it comes to any spirituality or religion because we are one.
Yeah.
It all comes back to the same God, the same source. I feel like we're all a little piece of him everywhere, not just here, but in the other dimensions and everywhere. So we're kind of just all connected.
Yeah.
So that's what irritates me sometimes when people think they're right and you're wrong. It's like, no, we're all right. You know what I mean? We all are coming to this in our own way. I always visualize God, source, whatever you guys call it, like so many different paths to the same place, right? And for some people, it's Christianity. For some people, it's, you know what I mean? Different religions or spirituality.
Yeah. I mean, I'm absolutely for example, like in Christianity, we're taught to believe that God is like this man, this human form, and that it's a he. And I believe God, source of creation, to be gender neutral, actually, to be
Absolutely. Because there's a feminine and a masculine energy.
to be more like their Father God, right? Because,
Yeah, it's God. We can't label him, not him, her.
yes, which goes back to the suppression of the divine feminine and the patriarchal.
And that's when Mary Magdalene got screwed. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yeah. You guys got to look this up. If you're piqued in your interest, start looking into Mary Magdalene because she got labeled kind of as like a whore kind of in the Bible, right?
As someone who was lying and
Yeah.
she has a whole gospel, just like in the Bible.
She has a whole gospel, just like the Gospel of Mark, Matthew.
She was the disciple.
Yes, she was actually like really close to Jesus.
Yes, there are a lot of texts that portray her and Jesus actually as twin flames.
Yeah, like they're completely connected. But what happened was, as humans, and when this patriarchy thing was taking over, and the religious, a bunch of men sat around a table to decide really what was going to be in the Bible, right?
Well, yes, that's one thing I want to say is that I want to say the Bible, there are a lot of truths in the Bible. I will
Absolutely.
in meditation, sometimes I'll have specific verses come through out of nowhere and I don't know the verses and I'll go look them up and be like, oh, there's a lot of truth in the Bible. There is also a lot of interpretation, like man-made interpretation in the Bible, right? This is another thing I talk about a lot, which is connected to intuitive development, is the importance of getting really grounded and anchored into what truth feels like for you. right?
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of bullshit in the world. We're in an age of information, which is great. It can be great, but it's also easy to fall into a trap of being overstimulated with information and maybe based upon your own ancestral, environmental, societal conditioning, right? Influenced by information that is not true, by information that's false.
Because things have gotten left out of the Bible.
Exactly.
Like I said, they made the decision, oh no, Mary Magdalene's stuff isn't important. Let's leave that out.
So knowing what truth feels like to you is in your body is really important.
Okay. Like what feels true to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they say, you don't throw the baby away with the bathwater. No, just because you're in a spiritual awakening doesn't mean you have to ditch all of the beliefs you've been raised in. You just have to stop and say, what feels true to me? Right?
Yes. And what a lot of people do, right, is someone will say something and they'll wonder if it's true. And the first thing they'll do is go to the internet to research it. That's not what I'm talking about. Because, and people do that because we're conditioned to look outside of ourselves for the answer, which is a program.
Yeah, because the internet's biased for sure.
Oh, totally. And history books are too. It's like there's so much that has happened. Mary Magdalene's a great example that has been left out, right? You only see on the internet or whatever the people that are in charge of managing that allow you to see.
Exactly.
So it's really important for you to know what that truth feels like in your actual body, not just your mind. And that could be through your clairs, it is connected to your clairs, right? Everybody, whether they feel like they're connected with their intuitive voice strongly or not, has had a moment in their life where something happened and they just knew.
You just know it's right or wrong. Yep.
So looking back on that time and on a specific memory, how did you know? Like, did you just know? Was it claircognizance? Did you feel it physically? Did you get the chills in your body? Did you feel neutral? Did you see something and then it came true? I mean, how did that happen for you? It's everybody's experience that.
Yes. So we just have to start feeling those things and seeing where we feel it in our body. Yeah.
Tuning into that and then using that as your basis for making all of your decisions in your life.
Right. Not based on what everybody else tells them we're supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Because we all kind of have a different path we're on. So we can't do what everyone else is doing all the time.
Exactly. And we're taught the opposite. We're taught
to follow. Follow the leader. Yep. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes. So what is true to us? So an example of that would be like my entire life growing up, like you said, in Christianity, there were certain things that never made sense to me. And it didn't matter how many lessons in Sunday school or services, it never, ever made sense to me. Two main things. There are two. So, well, there's more than two. But one was, like you said, as far as gender, sexuality, all of that we are judged based on that, right? The fact that someone, like a man could love another man or a woman love another woman and they will burn in the depths of hell was always like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. God is love. That sounds insane, right? So that has I've never felt that. Like I've always, even from a young age, I can remember thinking like, this all sounds like scary and crazy. Why are they trying to scare me so much at church? But the other thing that never, because I think the older I got and the more people I meet from different walks of life, whether it's different religions, countries, it doesn't matter. Just people different than what I've been raised in. To think that the only way to God is only through believing every little bit the Bible says, and that Jesus is the only path. And that never rang true for me because I'm like, these are all amazing people, right? I've met like Muslims, Jewish, all different religions, and they're amazing. They're leading beautiful lives that are clearly God-led. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so for you to tell me that they're all going to hell, I was like, that's the craziest thing also that I've, like, all these wonderful people.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. Jesus is real. Jesus is amazing. Jesus,
absolutely.
One of my main guys. Jesus is an ascended master, a master teacher, and there are a lot of ascended masters.
Yes. I love me some Jesus.
Mary Magdalene's one of them.
Mary Magdalene's amazing. Like they all have so much to teach us in our journey until we get back into God's love again, right?
Yeah. And there are lots of paths to ascension, right? There isn't, one specific path.
Yeah. We're not all doing the same thing to get there.
Right.
We've all got our own set of journeys and lessons we have to learn.
That's where using that truth, right? That connection to your intuitive voice, to your soul's voice. That's one of the ways that Source Creator, God, speaks through you. And being anchored into that truth in your body and using that to navigate your path, and wherever it guides you, that's your path.
That's the right path. If it feels good.
Yep.
I've heard a lot of people say if it ignites like a passion in you, you're excited about it, then that's the right direction.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's part of it. Yes.
Yes, as we head that way. Okay. And I want to ask you on another thing. We just talked about how sometimes we have to unblock from that religious upbringing, right? We have to sit and decide what's true for us and all of that. That's part of that process. So another thing is sometimes we're blocked. We've got to dig in to forgive others and ourselves. Okay. And especially forgiving ourselves can be really tricky. Do you have any tips for that? What kind of work do we need to start in? I know we hear about mother wound. We talk about, all kinds of things. Is that something where we need to tap into our Akashic records? Because some of the things are from this lifetime. Some might be from other lifetimes. I don't know. What do you think about all that?
Yeah, it's usually a combination of both. There are conscious things, core wounds that we've experienced in this current life. And there are definitely subconscious, things that we're holding on to. We talked a little bit earlier about how we're multidimensional beings, right? And because we're multidimensional beings, we can hold on to stuff that's happened thousands of years ago, depending upon how ancient of a soul someone is.
Yeah.
They can be holding on to a lot of subconscious stuff. And especially we are living in a time right now. And a lot of the clients that I work with, we do a lot of subconscious, like deeper healing work, because it's all as a result of something that happens in this current life. An indicator that you want to reach out for support, right, is when you are making a conscious effort to shift something and it's just not shifting and you're not seeing what it is. That's an indicator that it could be subconscious for you. That, or you're using your ego to make decisions.
Yes. Would that manifest sometimes with anxiety, like a lot of fear-based anxiety or depression or different mental? Is some of that work we need to do that maybe things just buried, not even happened from this lifetime?
Yes, absolutely. Now, conditions like depression and bipolar and other mental illness conditions, sometimes those can be chemical.
Of course. Yeah. We're humans and our brain needs help. Oh, no, I'm not saying we don't need the other modality.
But our current medical model is very singular focus. And in my opinion and experience, many doctors and establishments are way too quick to prescribe a pill.
Yeah.
To solve something that can be done with alternative means, with doing the energetic work, the frequency work, to bring the body back into harmony, right? Because we have several body systems for each one of us, right? We have energetic, spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional, right?
Yeah.
So really getting to the bottom of which energy body or which body is causing the imbalance, and looking at yourself from a holistic standpoint.
Yeah. Like mind, body, spirit, all of it.
To bring all aspects of yourself back into harmony.
Yes. Because you may need, we're humans. We need medication. Sometimes we need medication, but that doesn't mean that's where the work stops. I guess is what I'm saying. Like we still want to delve into healing other things that are stuck inside of us, right?
Yeah. We could talk about this 24/7 for, I don't know,
There's so much. It's so all encompassing. Yes. So the different things you offer, though, you do a soul blueprint reading. Do you still do the soul blueprint reading?
Yeah, those recently replaced the private Akashic Records readings that I used to, because like I said, I've expanded even beyond that. So yes, in a soul blueprint reading, the session is bespoke to your path because your path is unique. So we all have a soul blueprint for this current life, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will often talk about, fate versus destiny. So you have a blueprint for this life. What are the experiences and circumstances that your soul has chosen?
What's the difference between fate and destiny?
Yeah. So I define fate as what you're born into, right? So your earth parents, there are certain milestones in your path here that your soul chose to experience as part of it.
Ahead of time. We decided we wanted to do those.
Exactly.
And that's fate. Okay.
Exactly. And destiny is what you choose with your free will to, in terms of how to respond to those experiences and circumstances. Our soul chooses experiences that it's going to have before it comes here, right? That's fate. Okay. Destiny is, what are you rising up to? How are you choosing to respond to those circumstances? For example, okay, one of my earliest memories of choosing destiny over fate, I experienced a lot of abuse and trauma when I was a child. And I ended up leaving home at 16 for good to be on my own. I did it to save myself at the time. That was one of my earliest memories where if I would have just stayed in the environment that I was born into, my path right now might be very different. But at that young of age, I had the consciousness and the awareness to go, you know what? If I stay here, I might not survive.
So that's what you're saying. Our free will allows us to make decisions towards our destiny path.
Make higher decisions, right?
Okay.
To evolve.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could be being called to a greater purpose of public speaking or starting a nonprofit or whatever higher calling God has put on your heart.
Yeah.
You can ignore it or you can choose it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I get that. So do you think, what's your opinion on how long we have on this earth, our lifespan predetermined or not? Because people will argue like fate, it's fate. The day you're going to cross over, die, is fate. Is it? What do you think?
So this is a thing, is that on the earth plane, right, our human self looks at everything from a linear perspective. So
Right.
You're asking me that question. What comes up is, some people are saying, oh, before you come here if you're going to die at age 50 and what it's going to be from, right? I believe that shifts, and it's not about a number or how old you are or even a specific circumstance. It's all energy.
Okay.
So there are several parallel realities and other timelines that we have the free will to choose, right? So you might have, it's another fate versus destiny thing. It's like, yeah, you have a plan when you come here, fate, what you're born into. But if you choose something different, then that can change. So I don't believe that it's linear. It's not static. It's not.
Because based on the decisions we're making, right, the paths we're taking will lead us down different, what you're saying is through different paths, different
Right.
timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've talked to people who've said, no, like if you have a family history of certain diseases and these things, you can actually help heal yourself and choose not to take that path.
Yeah, it's more about the soul lessons and the experiences and the choices that you make, right? Some people will ignore their higher calling and stay in a job that they're not happy in, and eventually they'll die and leave the planet, not necessarily because that was their soul's predetermined time to leave the planet. It's because they've literally created so much. I mean, the word cancer keeps coming.
Yeah, because they're storing all this trauma in their body.
Right? That eventually their body is ready to shut down.
Because we are humans in this 3D world. We have to take care of these bodies, or clearly we're going to die sooner than later. Yeah. Like we're making decisions daily that lead towards that. So there are different timelines, basically, that we can choose for ourselves.
Exactly. It's more about fulfilling what you came here before. And that involves your personal journey, right? Of living fulfilled and living expressed in the truth of who you are.
Yes. And trying to stay on the right path that you intended to be on.
Yeah.
So keeping a higher vibration, right?
And even expanding more on that, right? But if you ignore all of it, then.
And the way we stay on the right path, because people are like, okay, well, how the heck do I do that? Okay, is like you said, by listening to our intuition, feeling what feels true in our body when we're making decisions.
Exactly. Like for everyone who's listening to this right now, even you listening to me, are you listening to me from your mind, or are you listening to me from your heart, from your intuition?
Exactly. We've got to listen for our intuition. Yeah. Because there are people, like I'll have a conversation with someone, and if, like you said, I'm listening from my heart, I'm opening, feeling their vibrations, I will know like right away, like they're full of shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I will turn it right off and be like, I will not be taking advice from this person. And we've all been in that position. It can be simple conversations, right? It can be in a doctor's appointment. It can be at work, anywhere. And you just know, you're just like, this doesn't resonate with me. This is a no. Or you can listen with your heart and say, no, this connects with me, right? Or like for me, sometimes I'll get chills. I'll get like the chills in my body. And that's a sign for me like, yep, that's right.
You're
what they're
right.
Yep, that rings true for you. Do that. Yeah. So yeah, we just got to start trusting ourselves more. And that's not easy.
That's one of the greatest challenges, right? Is trusting ourselves. And because we've been surrounded, and we still are surrounded, we are evolving, and you can see that, but we're still in large surrounded by all of these false truths, right?
Yeah.
So really tuning into yourself and using your highest self, your intuition.
The intuition
is everything.
That's the bottom line. We just have to trust ourselves. We know what we're supposed to be doing. We know we came here knowing what we were supposed to be doing. We just got to tap back in.
We do now. Yeah. It's just choosing to extract ourselves from that matrix, from the constructs, to come back to who we are, because the society we've lived in is literally the opposite of who we are.
It is. No, it is for sure. Yeah. So a couple more services I want to quickly ask about. So I saw this Path of the Priestess Mastermind. Tell me about this.
Well, it's not open for enrollment right now, but
you can get on the waiting list. We could get on the waiting list for the next time. But just tell me what that's all about.
Yep. You can get on the waiting list. Yeah. Essentially, Path of the Priestess is an intimate mastermind, usually around 8 or 9 people, who are people who are feeling called to a greater vision to fulfill, a greater calling. And it can be someone who's already been focused on fulfilling a greater calling, and maybe they're feeling called to expand, right, into what's next for them. The mastermind really teaches the fundamental foundational pieces of what it means to live a soul-led life.
Okay.
Right? So we go very deep in terms of intuitive development and really opening yourself up as a channel.
Okay.
Because all channels, actually, it isn't just a gift that certain people have stowed up, right?
No, we can all do it if we want to.
Exactly. We can all open up to that. And so we go really deep in developing that, and also stepping more into your mastery as a creator, right?
Okay.
Create your own reality. So that's really what that mastermind is focused on, is going really deep.
Okay. And then do you guys meet as a group, as a support group within that too, or?
Yes. Yep. The intent is it's a combination of like group mentoring and also frequency.
Individual work. Okay. All right. I love that. And then okay. And then you've got quantum embodiment. Tell me about that service.
I love that container because sometimes we're in this space where we may not be in the season of working with someone in longer term mentorship. Or, we might just be feeling called to what's next for us, to that elevated purpose and mission on our path. And it's a month-long container where it's a combination of frequency healing and integration support to move very rapidly into that next.
Okay, so that's one-on-one with you if you sign up for that. Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's one-on-one with you for a month where you just really want to start digging in deeper on your own.
Yes, we're very focused on what is that next evolution for you. Mm-hmm. And I work with you to bring that into your physical reality in 30 days, to establish the foundation to make that into your reality.
You can build on that after the 30 days.
So you feel confident in moving forward beyond that 30 days.
Okay. All right. So you've done I can tell you've done a ton of growth from when you started this whole thing, from when you started meditating 15 years ago to now. Are you feeling a pull towards anything new, or are you set in what you are now? Like, what's next? Do you feel anything new coming?
Yeah. So I am being guided to some other things this year specifically. I can't speak to all of the details right now, but I am creating some books, chapters.
All right. You're going to be author because you co-authored some books where some of the chapters are yours. Okay. This will all be in the show notes, you guys, all the links. And so you're thinking about authoring your own books now.
I am. Yeah. Yeah. More than one, a combination of actually channeling higher beings to bring forward systems of knowledge and wisdom to benefit humanity, as
like that Dolores Cannon kind of thing.
Exactly.
Isn't that kind of she did? Yeah.
Exactly that. And also creating a book centered more around my own personal journey of transition.
Your own journey, like a memoir type of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you're busy.
Yes.
Yeah. You're on spiritual journeys, isn't it?
Just when my other podcast.
Yeah. And the podcast. You have so many things going on. So you're busy. And I think that's good because when we're on these spiritual journeys and we're trying to ascend, we got work to do. This is just one little life here. We got to make the most of it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that. Okay. Do you have any parting inspiration for us, or is anything coming through to you right now that you feel like we right now in 2025 need to hear?
Yeah. I mean, we went over a lot of information today. The number one thing I want to come back to is getting really grounded and anchored into what truth feels like for you and practicing making decisions from that space and acting from that. Right? Mm-hmm. That's the greatest challenge, is trusting yourself to act on that guidance. It's recognizing that guidance and then choosing to act on it, even when you're still feeling afraid. That's another trap that we as our human selves fall into, right? Is that we have to reach some utopic destination of being free of fear and living in joy 24/7 before we actually take an action, right? And that never happens. And that's why so many people leave the earth not fulfilling what their soul brought them here to do.
Oh gosh, then we have to do it again. No, let's do it this time.
Yeah, you do tend to, things do tend to keep coming back around until you move on.
Right back at us. Let's take care of it now, you guys. There's something pulling at you.
Again, it's nothing elaborate. It's simple. It's profound. That's truth. Right?
Yeah. Just coming back to love no matter what.
Get grounded, get connected with your soul's guidance, get connected with God, live anchored in your truth, make decisions from that space. You do that, everything else falls into place. That's it.
Yes. And let other people do their truth. We need to stop judging each other because we don't all have the same path and truth we're working towards right now.
Exactly.
Right. So it might be fine for them. Let them live their life like that, you guys. There'd be a lot more harmony and a lot more of us getting to that ascension point if we just freaking leave each other alone a little bit. Let people do their thing. If it doesn't align with you, that's fine. Separate paths for you. I say that all the time. Separate paths for us if it doesn't matter. But I'm not going to try and change that person's goals. That's not for me to do, right? That's just for me to follow my own path.
Well, exactly. And that's the thing too, is a lot of people feel like they have to create exceptions to living with that golden rule, right? It's like,
right.
Oh, well, if it's my spouse, then I can't live like that. Or if I'm around my mother or my
whatever
friend, right? That's part of it too. It's understanding that living your truth is living your truth regardless of whoever's around you.
What everybody else is doing. Yeah. Let them do their thing. They'll do their thing. We'll do our thing, you guys. And we'll get this done. We're going to finish this life strong, you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have also a free gift too, which is a meditative journey called Highest Destiny. So for those who are listening who are feeling called to that next evolution of their journey, it's a fantastic meditation journey.
How long is it? How long is the meditation?
I think it's about 28 minutes. It's
okay, perfect.
And I've had feedback from several people who have messaged me to say that they've listened to it several times, and every time they do, they receive a new insight. So it's
all right. I'm going to download that. Okay, that link's in the show notes too, you guys. Click on that. I love a good guided meditation. Yep, I need all the help I can get. Yeah. Well, Jennifer, this has been enlightening. I love having these conversations with people because I feel like I learned something new. And like you said, now what you've told me, I can feel what rings true for me, right?
Absolutely.
And then I just grab onto that. And whatever doesn't resonate, if you're listening now, if some of the things she said really were pulling at you, that's what you go with. Dig into that.
Yeah.
And if some of it's like, what the heck? Like, I'm not there yet. That's fine. Don't be there yet. Stay on your own path. I'm just trying to, through the podcast and that, expose you guys to all these different things so that you can figure out what resonates with you and what sounds like your truth.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I feel like we could talk about a million more things, but we don't want to keep everybody here all day. So we gave you guys enough to think about for this one. But check out her podcast too, you guys, because she's got tons of episodes on all kinds of subjects too. So if you feel so pulled, download her links and see if she's the person that's meant to guide you, you guys. There's someone out there listening right now. This was meant for you and you know it right now. Feel it. Feel it in your body, right, Jen? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Jennifer. This has been awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Listen, I know your time is valuable. And right now, I'm feeling super grateful and totally humbled that you chose to hang out with me today. If this podcast resonates with you, could you do me a solid and hit that subscribe or follow button? That's going to help you out because you're never going to miss an episode. And it helps me out because you're never going to miss an episode. And if you have like 30 seconds more, could you leave a 5-star rating and maybe leave a kick-ass review? Thank you so much, and I can't wait to continue our journey on the next episode. Oh, and I can't forget the fine print. You know, the legal jargon. This podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We're just two friends on this journey together, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional. You get it. See you next time.